Welcome. Please insert keycard. Processing. Access to Site81's database has been granted. Secure. Contain. Protect. Item hash SCP-4817 Anomaly Class, Euclid Special Containment Procedures. SCP-4817 is contained in a combination stable, SHCC at Site-02, outfitted with supplies for the maintenance of equine health as well as various forms of audiovisual and textual media in French, English, and Polish. Interviews may be conducted by trained personnel during active periods. Description: SCP-4817 is an entity composed of the headless body of King Louis XVI of France fused to a white mare, Equus friscobolus, through the skin on the underside of the legs. The entity is sentient but docile when in an inactive state, with both portions seemingly controlled by the equine section. The horse requires normal calorific intake but does not age, while the human section does not undergo normal biological processes. For various regular lengths of time throughout the year, SCP-4817 will enter an active period, spontaneously developing a head which detaches from the neck once fully grown, till to 15 minutes after initial development. The head, SCP-4817-A, possesses full control over the human section of SCP-4817 and remains sapient and immortal for a set period of time before rapidly decomposing. Memories and experiences persist across developments of each SCP-4817-A instance, of which there are currently 8. A list of instances is included below, along with their identities, periods of manifestation, DD format, and notable traits. SCP-4817-A1, male, manifests for the duration of 0101. Speaks a largely untranslated dialect of Proto-Celtic, acts consistently aggressively towards staff. Demonstrates equestrian prowess. SCP-4817-A2, female, refuses to elaborate on past. Manifests between 0201 and 0228. Disinterested in media, engages regularly in meditation. Requests alcohol frequently, which may be supplied by personnel in small doses. SCP-4817-A3, identifies as King Henry II of England, manifests between 0301 and 0431. Unable or unwilling to provide concrete details of the time period they supposedly lived in. Does not visually resemble known portraits of Henry II. SCP-4817-A4, identifies as Harvey Beaufort, manifests between 0601 and 0631. Known as a wealthy entrepreneur prior to disappearance in Paris, 1889. Body was recovered from River Seine around that time, with death ruled as an unsolved murder. Expresses requited romantic interest in Agent Robin Eulden. Visitation rights between the two have been tentatively granted. SCP-4817-A5, identifies as King Louis XVI of France, manifests between 0701 and 1001. Aware of situation, states that it got its money's worth before Foundation containment. Spends time consuming media, expresses continued interest in modern music. SCP-4817-A6, former SCP-F researcher Wozniak, became SCP-4817-A6 following an interaction with an unknown entity. Manifests between 1029 and 1119. Cooperative with Foundation staff, designated Class E personnel. Reports inability to recall details of the SCP-4817-A conversion process, or details of the entity he communicated with. Notably, Wozniak's personal bank account was emptied in its entirety following his conversion. SCP-4817-A7, identifies as Michael Sallow, known American serial murderer, disappeared circa 1950. Manifests between 1120 and 1123. Refuses to engage with Foundation personnel, apparently under the impression that the Foundation is a branch of the American government. SCP-4817 is to be restrained while SCP-4817-A7 is active, with head secured separately. SCP-4817-A8, unknown male, with poor dermal and dental health. Manifests for 8 seconds on 12/26. Vocalizes continuously before decomposing. Addendum: SCP-4817 Interview Log 4817.05.023, Interviewed, SCP-4817-A5 Interviewer, Dr. Alessandro Macro. Note: SCP-4817-A5 had manifested 5 days prior. Humanoid Interaction Protocol HIP 4817-A5 was observed. Less than begin log greater than macro: Good afternoon, Your Majesty. SCP-4817 turns around, holding SCP-4817-A5 in its right hand. SCP-4817-A5, Cuckoo, Garson. I was just about to play the new CD your co-workers got for me, but I do love good company. Macro: Thank you for allowing this audience, Your Majesty. SCP-4817-A5, Of course. It gets lonely in here sometimes. Hey. What did you want to ask from me? SCP-4817 turns around, its equine section approaching a wine cabinet behind the two. Macro: SCP-4817-A5, Care for a drink? You can talk, by the way, you have my attention. Dr. Macro exhales sharply. Macro: I am honored by your offer, Your Excellency, but I cannot drink while working. SCP-4817-A5, Such is the tragedy of the common folk. Macro: Your Majesty, last time we spoke, you mentioned you had gotten your money's worth before we relocated you here. What did you mean by that? SCP-4817 turns with a glass of wine in its left hand, which it nurses to SCP-4817-A5 before speaking. SCP-4817-A5, Yes. I remember that day. I'd like to apologize for the lashing I gave you. I had quite a bit of wine, you see. Dr. Macro clears his throat and looks away before continuing. Macro: It is forgiven, Your Majesty. SCP-4817-A5, Wonderful. You are so kind. Now, I am sure you and your fellows have noticed the presence of, shall we say, one or two other notable individuals inhabiting my body, yes? Macro: Yes. SCP-4817-A5, Well, you see, each of them are charged a nominal fee to inhabit my body for a stretch, presumably returning to their own once their time is up. It allows some of my peers to experience kingship while I am away at my summer residence, you see. I do spend so much time there nowadays. I in turn was provided with a large payment up front, to spend on wining and dining and such, and all involved found it to be an extremely satisfactory arrangement. The folks who set it up tell me I am a residence in high demand. Or at least, I was until I was relocated. Macro: My condolences for lowering your property values. SCP-4817-A5, It is not you who owes me an apology, Garson. And though this place is not as lovely as my dear Basilique Royale de Saint Denis, it does have its benefits. SCP-4817 holds up its wineglass and SCP-4817-A5 winks before nursing a large portion of the present wine. Macro: Thank you. You know, I am curious, Your Majesty, who would I have to get in touch with if I wanted to set up my own body as a vacation home for others to use? SCP-4817-A5, I mean you no offense, dear Garson, but are you sure? I don't know if you'd have many clients. But if you must satisfy your curiosity, I could refer to the one who set this all up for me. Macro: Do you have any idea how much their rates would be? I want to make sure I could afford it. SCP-4817-A5 frowns. SCP-4817-A5, Well. Do you have any royal bloodline in you? Any amount will do, really, but the more purple your blood the more time you'll afford. If you've got that in a descendant, you're just about ready. Macro: I don't believe I do. Wait, is that how Wozniak got in? SCP-4817-A5, Shocking, I know. But as my aunt and father-in-law used to say, there's a little Habsburg in all of us. Macro: Thank you, Your Majesty, You've really been of great help to me today. Dr. Macro prepares to leave, SCP-4817A5, yes, of course. Before you leave, would you press the play button on the stereo? I find my hands are rather full. Macro, can do. End log.